I'd love to hear a little bit about little Flamy, like life before Flamy, as a little one, and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself as a child.
Absolutely. Well, it's been interesting. The more I've been doing drag, and I've only been doing it for a little over a year, maybe almost a year and a half now. But the more memories of me as a child have come flooding back, where I remember myself poking around in my mom's makeup cabinet, or trying on her high heels or a big skirt. I remember she had this one green skirt that was just ruffled, and I would pull it up to under my armpits, and it would still drag on the floor, and I would just twirl and twirl and twirl. And so I started out a very, I think, little kid. And then, as as would happen in a lot of Southern evangelical fundamentalist homes, the one I grew up in, I think once my parents and my community saw that some of these things were a bit of a pattern, they really got shut down. And we started getting a lot of definitions of what it was to be what a Christian looked like. And none of that involved anything that you for you today. So I real quickly kind of learned that pursuing these things that make me so happy. Yeah. So I didn't for about 30 years. I didn't. I just kind of turned off all of those interests and inclinations and instincts, and said, all right, I will do what I have to do to fit in. I very much wanted to be a good boy, a good kid, and I was very good at being a good kid. I was good at rule following. I was good at least, presenting to everyone that I was just model student, model son, model churchgoer, all the things. And I just kind of was the golden boy of my little community. And yeah, I always sang. I always had a little bit of a theatrical bent. I did theater in middle school, high school, college kind of thing. But other than that, I really tried to downplay all of the anything that would have been deemed effeminate, or just not appropriate for a good old boy growing up in Western North Carolina, where I grew up. So yeah.
And did you in private, did you still kind of explore some of that stuff, or was it just completely just gone for a while?
It was gone. It was just very, very gone. And I turned my energy to other things, I think. Music was always my one big outlet that I could just fall back into, and that's where it was okay to have a little bit of passion and a little bit of, especially in church, you could sing a song about the Lord and have a little, something behind it that just in everyday normal life would have probably been frowned upon. But no, I kind of let it all go by the wayside and tried to. I'm a really good compartmentalizer. I can really cram a lot of shit into a bottle and tuck that away. I'm good at tucking a lot of things, but I can tuck that bottle away and and not have to look at it for a long time until some sort of personal crisis, emotional crisis happens, and then I'm like, where are all these bottles coming from? And time to uncork and figure it all out. But yeah.
So you had a great experience with the church growing up?
Yes and no. So great in that it was our entire world. So I went to the type of church I grew up in is called Plymouth Brethren. It's a sect. It's very small. My sister calls it a cult. I'm almost there. I'm almost to the point where I'm like, hindsight is 2020. I'm like, we were kind of in a cult. There's no leadership in the church that I grew up in other than a board of elders. So there's no staff, no one gets paid, no pastor. It's just people coming together, 5 days a week for various purposes. You have Wednesday night prayer meeting and Saturday morning men's prayer breakfast and Tuesday night Awana clubs and Friday night missions. And of course, 3 services on Sunday. And, but you just come together and you do life together, and there's no, like I said, no leadership and no pastor or anything like that. So it's really just kind of community driven, community led, which could have been and I think was probably an asset of the community, except for it was just incredibly patriarchal, incredibly misogynistic and homophobic, and just all the things that we know fundamentalism can tend to be.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, I grew up feeling like I was part of something and deeply connected and had a place in a community that I liked. There were a lot of kids my age growing up with me, and there wasn't a lot to dislike. We were rewarded for all of the indoctrination. So like we got I was laughing when you were talking about, drag show getting tips. Like we got tipped in church for learning the books of the Bible or getting up to recite them in front of the church. You could earn your quarters and your $5 bills that way. So I wasn't miserable in that way. But at the same time, I was very fearful of doing anything that would cost me my place in that community.
Yeah.
And the just the rules and regulations were a lot. There's a lot. Just everything from the creed we had to believe, the doctrines we had to sign on to the way we had to live and behave in the world. And I mean, this is nothing new to anyone who's grown up in any kind of any religion really, but especially fundamentalist religions. But ours, I feel like, was maybe a step beyond, and it was especially hard for women. Women could not speak; they weren't permitted to use their voices during actual designated church services. So during fellowship and in between and that kind of thing, of course, they could socialize and interact, but they were never permitted to speak in a church service. They had to cover their hair, like a verse in Corinthians, like one little throwaway comment about a woman's hair is her glory and should be covered in the presence of the Lord, kind of thing. So they would wear these little crocheted doilies that the ladies of the church would make, and so it was especially tough, I think, for women and female identifying people growing up in that world. And it was tough for anyone who was queer, which I did finally realize about myself. And that was my greatest internal struggle and fear, and was that was gonna ultimately cost me my place in my community.
Yeah, it can be so difficult because those communities can feel so loving, and like when you're a part of it, when you're able to do everything right or whatever, it's like such a great place to land. But yeah, as soon as you do something different, when did you start to I guess when did that difference, if you will, start to percolate a little bit more within you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like my queerness, right? Is that
yeah, like when did you kind of start to realize that?